Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
Shares of HP are down this morning after giving a profit outlook that fell short of market expectations. The computer maker citing the impact of rising component costs and tariffs on goods from China. Joining us now is Enrique Lores, HP CEO, as well as here on the desk with me, co-host of Bloomberg Technology, Caroline Hyde. Enrique, let me first ask you about these job cuts. You're going to cut 2,000 workers, or as many as 2,000 workers, to save $300 million a year. It must be partially in response to these tariffs, right? Where are those jobs going to be lost?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. This is part of the restructuring program that we started with the company almost 3 years ago, and we have been very selective and very strategic of where to make these cuts. And actually, it's not only cuts, we are more doing rebalancing because at the same time we're investing in other areas. But that's really a part of a long-term plan that we have put in place, and really we are now about to finish that at the end of the year.
But where are those jobs, are American jobs going to be lost here, Enrique?
I think it's all over the company. We have been identifying areas where we needed to be more precise, and we haven't shared externally the specifics of where this will happen. But I can tell you is one of the decisions we make with more care because we know the relevance this has for our employees.
Okay, we know that you were looking at stripping out costs. When it comes to the stripping out of costs, is it, as Matt implies, in reaction to also the component costs that are going up, the China tariffs, as we've been speaking about on the earnings call, for example?
I think it's a combination of multiple factors. When we look at the short term, clearly component cost and tariffs are going to be having an increase, but also this is part of the effort to make the company more competitive in the long term and to be able to invest in the areas where we see long-term growth. We are positioning the company to lead in what we call the future of work, and this requires incremental investments in areas like AI, in areas to like customer experience, and this has been driving these savings, allow us to also invest in the areas of growth for the future.
But how quickly is the AI PC, for example, really coming on tap and driving demand? I know there's good growth, 25%, but it's from a standing start. So ultimately, when do you think the percentage of AI PCs will match what's already being shifted to the market, for example?
Our current expectation is that by the end of this year, AI PCs will represent more than 25% of all PC shipments. So it's really growing very fast. As you said, market-wise, quarter over quarter, we saw growth of 25%. So they are starting to be a relevant part of our portfolio and a relevant part of the mix. And this is because of the incremental value that they bring. When customers use that, they can experience AI at the edge, which means it is lower cost, it is cheaper, it is faster than doing it in the cloud, and it's also more secure because you can use your local data, you don't need to bring the data to the cloud, and you can manage everything locally.
So part of the reason that the Trump administration is putting on these tariffs is to bring production back to the U.S. And obviously, there's not a lot of computer final assembly in this country, or printers for that matter. Are you reacting at all to this by moving production to the U.S.?
What we have learned during the last 3 years is that we always need to be looking at different scenarios of how to evolve our supply chain. And this is what we have done in the last 2 years. Moving manufacturing to the US is one of the scenarios that we are contemplating. We haven't made any decisions yet.
How expensive would that make components, though, Enrique? Are we going to see pressure on component prices and your ultimate bottom line continue if you're having to shift the manufacturer closer to the US?
I think one of the challenges of bringing manufacturing back to the US is what you just said. It's not only the assembly that we will be doing, it's what will it take to bring all the different components, all the different suppliers that we have, and have them manufactured here. And this is going to be a much longer process, and it's part of the evaluation that we are doing.
Is there much incentive for you to do so other than political pressure? Are you getting enough carrot rather than just stick coming from the federal government?
I think there are different reasons to make our supply chain footprint more flexible. and this is what we have been doing over the last years. One is requirements from different governments, and different governments have put in place different requirements. Also, another incentive is logistics cost. It will be, of course, cheaper to produce products closer to where customers are, and also provides more flexibility and in terms of time for response to customer demand. So there are some benefits of building products locally, and this is one of the reasons that where we have gone from a very centralized model that we had a few years ago to a more decentralized model that we have now.
Enrique, how is the brand progressing? You know, somebody of my age knows the name Hewlett-Packard, but not the simple two-letter acronym HP. You have obviously a real opportunity to make a change there as the kids start using computers more for AI, or as AI starts to drive sales. So how is pushing this brand and your growth as simply HP progressing?
We think that the brand is one of the key assets that we have in the company. And during the last 24 months, we have significantly increased the investment that we do in the brand. And we, for example, have signed some global sponsorships with key sport teams to be able to really make the brand more visible. And this is, for example, why we signed an agreement with Ferrari to be the title sponsor of Ferrari last year. Additionally, to bring kids, this is one of to the brand and to the company, this is one of the areas where our gaming business is relevant. We are one of the key gaming suppliers in the world, and by having a strong presence in gaming, we can attract kids and young people to the brand.
You're talking Matt's language when you bring out Ferrari.
And video games.
And video games for that matter. Enrique, going into the weeds here a bit on the tech side of things, you made a really interesting purchase recently of Humane. It was a much hyped generative AI hardware and software company, ex-Apple founders. They sold to you the talent, the tech, but not actually the hardware pin. I'm interested in, you're not thinking about generative AI as a hardware piece in that respect. How does it help your business?
We think that the acquisition of Humane has been a very smart move for us. We are getting a very talented team, and we are getting key software technology that we can integrate in the rest of the portfolio. One of the key strategies of the company is really about integrating AI into all of our products so customers can experience AI at the edge, and Humane has key technologies that will allow us to accelerate that development. So it's really a big part of where we are taking the company, and we are very pleased having been able to do that.
Enrique, really appreciate the time today. Enrique Lores there is the CEO of HP. And, of course, thank you as well to Caroline Hyde of Bloomberg Tech. No, really appreciate it. Please bring us more.
When they mention Ferrari, too.
Exactly. I mean, Ferrari is really a tech company, right? And each of their suspension pieces on the new SUV are like supercomputers in themselves.
And aren't we seeing the pressure on the computer on wheels that is Tesla at the moment? And just ultimately, all of these business, whenever you go to the Mobile World Congresses of the world, the big tech conferences, they always basically be about autos. I'm about to go there, just a little shout out. But in general, it has been all about the autos, all about the intersection of car. And it's so interesting when you speak to Mark Gurman, just really saying the biggest loss that Apple ever made was not doing the car anymore.
Interesting story, right? CarPlay is so ubiquitous, but CarPlay is at threat in some ways.
Yes, no, that I think was the most interesting thing I learned last week of anything.
But I also loved how you tried to push him on, like, where are these job cuts happening? How are they happening? Because this is something we've got to focus on. When you've got Autodesk, the software company today, also announcing 1,300 jobs going. You've got almost 2,000 coming from HP. This is a drip, drip, drip effect. We are not seeing the jobs being added that maybe we thought with technology. Data centers don't employ that many people.
And to the point that you've been making here, so many different job cuts for different reasons around the world and in the United States. Remember, Meta also announced some job cuts as well. Caroline, we have to leave it there. We thank you. You are a real hero to the whole network this week.